Hello, everyone. Welcome to our winter meeting. It's good to see you all, or some of you. I have a short little panel of people I can see without scrolling, but welcome. So today's meeting is recorded. We just want to let you know that. And then there are also instructions here on this slide if you would like closed caption. So first of all, my name is Tracie McMahon. I'm a program specialist here with KCSOS. And with me today is another program specialist, Jason Crossley.
Hi, everyone.
He's there. He'll be in the chat taking attendance and all that good stuff. If you could just make it easier on Jason, what we go on is basically your screen. There's no need to type your name in the chat. We really just go on the screen. So if you could please type your first and last name, that is how we take attendance. So if you do not know how to change your name, I think most do, but if just in case you don't, you just click on those three dots in the corner box, and then I think it'll say rename, and just make sure again that your first and last name are on your screen. So today's training is really just an extension and a continuation of what you learned in the Nearpod. So before attending this meeting, we did ask that you complete the Nearpod, and that was a really in-depth look at the rest of the year. So this winter meeting, the purpose of it is really like the orientation for the second part of the year, is where we lay out everything that you are meant to do for the rest of the year, explain, give a chance for you to ask questions. So hopefully you were able to complete that Nearpod before attending tonight. If you were not, you can always go back and complete it, but there might be some areas where you're not as familiar with what I'm saying as you would have been had you completed the Nearpod. So today's agenda. So we're starting with our candidate and mentor updates. And Jason, would you please drop a link if you haven't already to the slide deck today? So you'll have access to this slide deck, and the slide deck will have a lot of resources for you that'll just be easy for you to go back to this as the year progresses, as opposed to maybe going into the program guide. So if you want to take a copy of that, you're welcome to do that. As we mentioned a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago or so, at the beginning of the winter meeting opening, we are having a breakout session where candidates will share their learning from ILP Phase 2. And during that time, we'll keep the mentors with us. So I'll go over that here in just a moment. So remember, there were a couple of questions that as candidates, you're going to just present your learning. It's not a big deal. It's really just answering a couple of questions and just sharing what you did on your ILP Phase 2 on your either your mini inquiry if you're year 1 or your inquiry as a year 2. Then we're going to overview Phase 3 and 4 of the ILP, since we are going into that section. I'm not going to go into great depth because that was what the Nearpod was for. Just touch bases there, and also make sure there aren't any questions. And we'll be previewing just a little bit of the showcase presentation together. Again, just giving you a little bit of an overview, and then we'll open it up to Q&A. And then candidates, you will be dismissed, and mentors, you'll stick around for just a little longer to go over some really mentor specific things. So this first part of the meeting, a lot of what we're talking about is what the candidate expectations are. And the reason why we have you here, mentors, is obviously you're guiding your candidates through that, which is why your Nearpod also included a lot of explanation as to what the candidates will actually be working on. Okay, so before we get going, we just want to kind of set the tone here. So I'm going to play this video. It's called The Difference You Make. And I just want you to really think about that as you watch it, that difference we make. Sometimes we feel like all the work we do kind of goes unnoticed, or is it really, helping anybody? So I really think that this video is a powerful representation of that. So let's all just take a moment to watch.
Excuse me, young man. What is it that you were doing?
Throwing starfish into the ocean.
I must ask, why are you throwing starfish into the ocean?
The sun is up and the tide is going down. If I don't throw them in, they'll die.
But young man, do you not realize there are miles and miles of beach and starfish along each mile? You can't possibly make a difference.
Okay, so um, that's what it's hard to remember sometimes, is that we are making a difference. You're out there in the trenches, and we thought last year was hard, but this year is even harder. This is a year like any other, unlike any other. And sometimes I'm sure that you feel bogged down, and that it's, maybe not, you don't even know if you're really doing anything to help, but you are. And we wanted to just take a moment to tell you that, and that, we see you, your students see you, and even if it's just one student, it does matter what you're doing to that student. So thank you for all that you're all doing. So for candidates, updates. So for your meetings, let's just take that separately from everything else. We get a lot of questions about the meetings. So PLOs. For the whole year, you have to attend 3. So just make sure you've attended 3 before the end of the year. And what happens with that, you're not giving us, like proof that you've gone or any of that. You're answering questions on your ILP about those PLOs. So by the time you get to your ILP 4, just make sure you've attended those PLOs, because you'll need to be able to answer questions regarding, how they helped you meet your growth goals and things like that. The induction showcase. So registration will open April 4th, and Zoom presentations will begin May 10th. Now, we did just recently send out some guidance, and we also put it in or we're putting it in our newsletters. We are changing our showcase to also include as an option recording it. So in the past, in the past, it was in person, right? And you'd sit at a table with, maybe 4 people plus, or 3 people plus a staff person, and you just present your learning for the year going off of the outline that we provided. And then last year we had to adapt that to doing that, the same thing, but over Zoom. And this year we wouldn't have gone a step further, and we're offering, you can do it that way through Zoom, where it's yourself, 3 other people, and a program representatives, and you would present a slideshow to us just about your learning. Or the option that we're giving now, and I think we sent out that email if we didn't, and it's coming in the next couple of days. Another option, you don't have to do this, it's just an option, just trying to make things easier and give as many choices as we can, will be recording. So you'll still do the presentation and the slideshow, but you can screen record yourself talking. We do want to see your face, so there'll be some rules around that. But you'll just be following the same outline. It's just the option of doing it that way, as opposed to being live and in person and delivering. So we just wanted to throw that out there. Again, if we haven't sent that out, then it is coming. And so just kind of keep that in mind. Another aspect of the program that you need to be aware of are the activities. The ILP 3 is coming up, due on the 16th of March, so you have plenty of time. But remember, that one of the 4 is the most involved. So definitely make sure you're going through those, if you haven't already, with your mentors. You're reading the whole thing out, so you know timeline, because if you're a year 1, you're going to be observed twice in that ILP. So that's the big part of the inquiry. If you're a year 2, you're working on a project, so there might be things you need to be planning out in advance for that. So just make sure you sit down at some point and collaborate with your mentor, go through it, and kind of really set up a timeline there. ILP 4 is to be uploaded by May 9th. And then you have your, like as I mentioned, your induction showcase. And then the only thing left you'll have as far as activities is your candidate program survey number 2. That'll close on May 20th. Okay, so that's all you have left for the year. Mentors, you have your meetings, and we just sent out a mentor, it says coming very soon, but we already sent it out, some updated accommodations we've made for the mentor networking meetings, and I won't go over those because I know the email really broke that down for you. If you have questions, you can ask them during the mentor section, or you can always email us, but we did change some requirements to make things a little easier. And also, make sure you're continuing to meet with your candidates 1 hour per week. And big important thing here, especially coming up right now, continue to log those meetings. So you may be meeting with them every Friday at 2, but if you're not putting it in the log with them, we don't know. And so when we go to look, it looks like nothing's happening. So please make sure that's, the expectation that those logs are getting put in every week, so that it's always up to date. Program activities for mentors, it's just the ILP 2, and that one is due on February 9th coming up. Log review number 2, we went ahead and waived ILP 3 for mentors, and then the program survey and mentor log review 3. So that's what's left for mentors. And if you ever, get lost, like I said, this slideshow would be a good resource, but also if you prefer the program guide, here are some pages where you can find that information. So again, if you want to take a picture of this screen or just keep this slide deck, these are good places to look for like specific due dates and requirements. And this is within our program guide. Okay, so we've come to the point where we are going to have a breakout session with candidates. Okay, year 1 and year 2 candidates, you'll present your learning from your ILP phase 2. So remember, you did different things. If you're year 1, you had a little mini inquiry where you practiced a strategy. And if you're year 2, you did a bigger inquiry where you were observed twice, also practicing a strategy. So in this breakout session, and I'm going to put you in pairs, and some of you might end up with 3 in a room. It just depends on how this goes. So you will talk about the following things. You'll just share the CSTP element area of focus for your inquiry. You'll specifically share what strategy you practiced, talk about the outcomes for both you and your students, and answer at least one question from the other person. It says the group, but we're just going to do pairs today. So those are the things you'll want to do. Again, take a picture of this slide or have it up from the slide the deck that we dropped in, and make sure you're kind of keeping time. So you should be speaking for about 3 minutes or so. Once you're done, so that's definitely 6 minutes you'll be in there together. Once you're done, maybe just discuss some challenges and successes that you've had this year, get to know each other a little bit and network a little bit with one another, and then I'll bring you back. For mentors, you are also going to get an invite. Please ignore that. You're going to stay behind with me and we're going to talk specifically with us. So please, for mentors, do not accept the invite. You're not going to breakout rooms right now. Just allow the candidates. Jason's going to be looking at the breakout rooms and moving you around. So if you happen to find yourself alone in a breakout room, just hold tight, he'll move you. We're just gonna try to even it out as much as we can. Like I said, we might have 3 to a room in some cases, but don't be surprised if you get moved out of a room as he's kind of evening out those numbers. So let me go ahead and get those going. Just one second. Okay, so I'm going to create them. And again, please, candidates only, accept that invite. Okay, I am going to go ahead and continue on with mentors, and Jason will help get those candidates situated in their breakout rooms. So for mentors, we really like to share our feedback that we get from the candidates when they take their program survey number 1. That's where they're really telling us how they feel like your relationships are going. So they think you guys are fabulous, just like we do. That's the good news. So let's look at this question. My mentor assists and supports me in completing program requirements. 99.69% said yes. So that's pretty incredible with the program this big, that many people feel so supported. So bravo to all of you, because all of the candidates take this. So that means that you're doing the awesome job that we already knew you were doing. Here are some of the things that they say. So my mentor assists and supports me in completing program requirements. So specifically about program requirements, I'm just going to leave this up here and let you kind of read it yourself. I won't read it out loud to you. So I'll leave it up for a moment so you can read. Okay, so you can see these are the things that candidates value in terms of helping them with their program requirements. This is the way that for them, that's what this looks like. I would describe my relationship with my mentor as, and 96% said collaborative. And no one said not collaborative at all. So again, pretty amazing results. We're very impressed with this. And here are some of the things that they said their mentors did in order to to cultivate that collaborative relationship. So again, I'll leave that up so you can just kind of get an idea from their perspective what it looks like to have a collaborative relationship. Okay, so this I noticed a lot is mentioned mostly about like communication, right? It's a lot of like listening. Here's my concerns, helps find solutions. So there's a lot of communication that they're looking for here in that collaborative process. My mentor provides information, assistance, and just-in-time support to collaboratively develop my ILP and support my professional growth. So this one, again, it's not as strong as the others, but pretty strong, right? And this one is that just-in-time support. So two things here. First of all, they may not have really known what that meant. And secondly, we're not as mentors as comfortable with or as used to giving that just-in-time support, right? So maybe that is where those numbers drop a little bit in this section. So here's some of the things that they said. Please describe how your mentor provided information, assistance, and just-in-time support to collaboratively develop your ILP and support your professional growth. And here's what they said. Again, I'll give you a little time to just read that. And I see pattern here of feedback, giving that time, right? That seems to be what they really value for this portion of your mentoring relationship with them. So let's think about those signs for just-in-time support. So that when we talk about just-in-time support, what we're talking about is, for those of you not familiar, it's those times where maybe you thought, okay, we meet every Friday at 2, looking at the calendar, okay, we should be working on, step 3 of their ILP2. I'm going to, give them these resources and you have it all planned out. And then you walk into their classroom and they're in tears because, a student had a meltdown or something happened, or they had a conflict with someone, another staff member, whatever the situation may be, but they need something different than what you'd planned to give them, right? It's usually going to be that emotional support, or maybe it's even like a deadline that they need to meet. They just found out that they have to have all the grades in, or whatever it may be. So here are some things you might see. So your candidate comes to you with a challenge. So again, you had something else planned, but they come to you with a challenge, or you can just see evidence of them being in distress. So again, that's where I was talking about. This is where we may not be as comfortable, because if they're saying, oh no, nothing's wrong, sometimes we have to keep asking those questions. You spot something unproductive, unsafe, or detrimental to students, or something that the teacher's doing in their practice that's happening that you think, okay, before we can go any further, I've got to talk to them about this. Your veteran teacher spidey senses tell you there's a concern afoot. So you just know it, you just feel it. So again, you're going to start asking those questions. Or maybe you catch wind that from someone else that something is going on, or that an issue happened. It might even be students, like you hear people talking about something that happened. So these are those things that come up that we're talking about when we're talking about that just-in-time support. So the crazy thing is that roughly 50% to 60% of your job will be giving just-in-time support, right? For all the planning that we do, really that is, with a new teacher, what you're looking at is about that statistic there. So it's important that we really start to become more familiar with that. And again, practice is really how we get there. It's just that kind of getting that comfort level of being able to ask those guiding questions to get to the root of the matter and really know what's going on with your candidate. So here are some things that people have said about providing just-in-time support. So Jason, would you mind dropping that Padlet in? Are you there into the chat, or I think I also have it. Let me see if I can do it.
Sure, I can grab
Do you
it,
have it
Tracie.
handy? Because I have it up, but
Oh, do you? You know, I don't have
yeah.
it handy, but I can
Okay,
get it.
let me get it. I got
Got
it.
it? Okay, thank you.
Okay, let me get back. Well, I thought I could. No, there I can. Okay. So I'm going to put it in the chat right now. So if you guys could just jump on this Padlet and just, it says describe the types of just-in-time support you've provided that have been most impactful to your candidates. Okay. So I put the Padlet in and just write something. And of course, look at what other people have had to say as well. And everyone just get on there and give us some of your thoughts about just-in-time support. Okay, you guys can go ahead and keep on adding to that. We love collecting these. Again, they're here for us to look at, but also for other people as we go on with these meetings to just see all these different ideas and strategies and techniques that other mentors are using. So you can choose to keep reading, or you can, continue adding. I'm going to go ahead and close the breakout rooms for the candidates. I think they've been in there for a while now. But again, just finish up with what you're doing there. It's going to take a good minute for them to get back. So continue with what you're doing, please. Okay, everybody's almost back. And everyone should be back now. Okay, thank you. Okay, candidates. So hopefully you had the opportunity to share your learning from your inquiries. I hope you had the sufficient amount of time. It felt like you did, but I'm not sure how it felt actually being in the room. So really, part of this was somewhat of a warm up for the showcase, because that's really what the showcase is. It's really just that easy, just sitting there with this, I put you in pairs, but with maybe 3 other people and talking about your learning with some, a guided outline. We really also wanted you to be able to hear each other's learning, because there's nothing like learning from other teachers. And in this format, you can learn from teachers all across Kern County. So that was our purpose in allowing you to do that. And hopefully you had some extra time after you were done sharing and you were able to just talk a little bit about this crazy year and maybe hear some ideas from one another. So thank you for that. So as we move into ILP3, again, you're doing 2 different things. So for year 1, remember, you're formulating an open-ended inquiry question. Then you're going to research some strategies or practices you might implement to practice in that. Work through 2 lesson cycles. So remember, that's where you're going to plan a lesson with your mentor, deliver the lesson and allow your mentor to observe you, have a debrief conference to see how it went, and then determine based on how it went what the next steps will be, and then repeat the process again. So remember, it's 2 cycles. And then at the end of that inquiry, or of that ILP, you're reflecting on the inquiry. And that's really it. It's a lot, but it's not as much as it seems. That's the basis of what you're doing. For year 2s, you've already done that. You just finished that, right? What you're doing now is you're planning a project. So this is something that you want to implement, that project, and it's something that is meant to help you grow in CSTP 6, the specific element areas of 6.2 and 6.7. So some of the things we really want you to keep in mind as you're meeting with your mentor right now, I have listed here. You want to think about who is your target audience, what is the goal of your project, what's the timing, because you want to be thinking of those things that you might need. Also, where does it fall? I don't know what's going on this year if you're having testing or things like that, probably not, but if so, that it's not falling this event that you're planning in the midst of something else big that might conflict. What resources might you need? Are you going to need permission slips, paperwork, requests, like all of those things? So that's why it's important to really sit down now and start mapping it out. Down here, we have some ideas and examples. This is not, I've had a few people call asking if they have to do this. No, these are just ideas. These are just what people have done in the past. So like a parent night, creating a website, a Google Classroom, a video project of some type, family night event, mobile library, assembly to extend some sort of learning. I don't know if that would even be possible right now for assemblies. Service project like a food drive. We've had that's kind of a popular choice, something to serve the community. So remember 6.2 through 7 is really all about extending the learning outside of your classroom. So maybe sharing some learning with peers or families or the community in some way. Okay, so that's the difference between those 2. So when we did our Nearpod, we wanted to just share with you some responses. So we asked year 1s, why is reflecting such an important part of the inquiry process? And I'm just going to put up here what some of them had to say. And I'll just let you guys read for a moment. So people have a lot of interesting things to say about reflecting. I think almost everyone agrees that it's important. And I think what happens as a new teacher, as a veteran teacher, that's the thing that gets put on the back burner, right? Because we're just treading water sometimes, especially in crazy times. And that is one positive thing about induction is we really do try to slow you down a little bit to reflect, because there's nothing more important in your learning than that reflection time. Okay. And so it's really interesting to hear what people have to say about reflection. In the moment, it's not always what we want to do, right? Because we're trying to survive, but it is really crucial in our learning for everyone, no matter new teacher, veteran teacher, it doesn't matter. For our year 2s, we asked about some possible projects. So year 1s, you can look at these as well, thinking for next year, because this will be you next year. Here are some things that people came up with on their own for possible things that they would do for their projects. So mentors, again, this is something, a good resource for you as well, looking at these to see maybe some ideas for your candidates, if your candidate's really struggling to come up with something to do. That's really the first step, is getting that idea, because for some there just seems to be like a block there of really coming up with something. Others, it's much easier to come up with that idea. So we just wanted to put this out there to help trigger some ideas for those that maybe it wasn't coming to so easily. Or maybe you have an idea, but you're open to looking at something else. So again, here are some things that other people are thinking of doing. Okay. So this is a resource here on this slide deck. Like I said, this is something you can go to easily without having to search if you just save this slide deck. This is the 3 ILP videos that we used in the Nearpod. So sometimes you'll lose access to the Nearpod because it expires. But if you have this, you could always go back. And those are those where we're walking you through the steps of each of the ILPs. If you ever wanted to reference that, we threw this slide in here for you to be able to do that. So ILP phase 4, I'm not going to go into too much detail. It is, of all 4 of them, the most straightforward. It's really just asking about your reflection for the year. It's the same for year 1 and year 2. And it's really just asking you to describe how you grew, not only in your growth area, but also in all of the CSTP standards. It asks about, what PLOs you attended. It asks to give you some of the supports you accessed this year. So it's really just a reflection ILP. Okay, this one's again pretty straightforward. And this one's due May 9th. One thing about ILP4, you do have to have it complete before you can register for a showcase. So make sure you get that completed before you register for a showcase. I'm sorry, before you complete your showcase, not register. I take that back. You can't do the showcase if you don't have ILP4 in. Okay. So the induction showcase presentation, as I mentioned before, we have changed it up a little bit, and you will be getting information if you haven't yet. And even if you have, I'm sure we'll send it out again as it gets closer. Like I said, you will have the option to pre-record it as opposed to doing it live. But one thing I didn't mention before, part of that is you do have to say what your intention is. If you say you're going to record it instead of coming live, you have to stick to it. So the reason for that is because we won't prepare as many live spots to be available, and we do have people we contract with to come in and help us with that. So you won't have a slot available if you've already said that you're going to record it. So once you say that you're going to do that, that's kind of what you're stuck with. And so we're also going to ask you to give us your answer a little sooner, just so we can plan ahead for how many people we need to have help us with these showcases. Candidates, you'll register for your time slot if you're doing it live by April 14th or beginning April 14th. And the presentations themselves run from May 10th to June 10th. Candidates, you'll present, like I said before, in small breakout rooms if that's the choice that you make. Also, make sure that from these inquiries that you're keeping evidence, because you are going to use that. That's part of the outline. It lets you know, you're going to need pieces of evidence for, if you're claiming that you found growth in this particular area, you'll need to show something. Usually that's going to include pictures, graphs, student work, videos. You really decide what the evidence is, but just make sure you're keeping evidence as you go along with these inquiries. And here I have the page numbers where you will find this information. So in the program guide, you will find the presentation overview, some guidelines, and the rubric. So you kind of have an idea of what we're looking for. And down here at the bottom, it tells you what page numbers in the program guide you will find these resources. Okay, so do I have any questions? I just went over a lot of information. There's definitely a lot of information in the Nearpod. If you have questions, now's the time. You can just unmute yourself, throw them in the chat. Jason can bring them to my attention, whatever you prefer. No questions at all? Don't be shy.
None in the chat yet.
Okay. Okay. Oh, go ahead. I hear someone.
Candidates only or mentors as well?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you fully.
Are you asking candidates to respond to you or mentors?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. No, just for this time, candidates. Oh, well, no, mentors, you can too, because that might help. That might help the candidates as well. We are going to have some time together here in a moment, but yeah, if we have a question that we think would apply to everyone, yes, mentors as well.
Can you go back to the presentation overview and the last section of that looked like it had to do with
Whoops. Now I went the other way. I went the opposite direction.
That's okay.
Okay, back here. or
Yeah,
further back?
and you're saying the rubrics available
Oh, right
for
here. So
both years, correct?
yes, it's going to be the same for both. The only thing that will be different, so year one and year two, everything will look the same, but for anyone who's an ECO, theirs will be slightly different because they'll have to have some extra time to share about their extra project. And also they'll have 15 minutes to present as opposed to the 10 that everyone else is given. But all that is right here on these pages down here.
I see that, okay.
Okay.
And then you said that our candidates actually have to choose whether it's a video or otherwise as far as the presentation by April 4th, or is that the beginning?
That's the beginning of when they can register. So we haven't pinpoint a date yet, I don't think, where we want them to let us know whether or not they're going to be video taping or doing it, but we will let them know like when we do get that date out there. Yes, so they will have to let us know in advance before
Right.
what they're going to do. But I don't think we've come up with a date, but we did talk about that we needed it to be fairly early so we could plan.
Right. I saw that you had April 4th up, but then I thought I heard
Yeah.
you say April 14th, but I know
Oh,
we're on break on the 14th of April, so.
okay. Let's see, we'll go back here.
You'll
It's
let
the
us know.
4th. Yeah, so they
So the time
register for their
slot Open,
Mhm.
okay.
And that's for the Zoom. That's for if they're doing it over Zoom. I'm not sure what we've decided yet on when we'll need to know if they're going to do it for Zoom or for recording.
Okay.
I don't think we've pinpointed that date
That's
down yet, but we
perfectly
will
fine.
definitely let you guys know as we get a little bit closer to that. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, well, please, for candidates at this point, we are going to release you. If you would please make sure to take the survey that is associated with this particular winter meeting. It should end up in your things to do box after Jason finishes attendance. So definitely by tomorrow morning, you'll see it there. If for some reason you don't see it in your things to do box, it'll show up in your assessment section. So just make sure to complete that, please. And thank you, candidates. Thank you so much for your time. You're doing an awesome job. This is the last time we'll actually meet until the showcases. So just again, make sure you're getting those PLOs taken care of if you haven't already, the ILPs, and always you're welcome to call us at any time if you have any questions. So thank you, candidates. And for candidates, you may go. Mentors, please stay back with me for just a little while longer. Thank you, candidates. Okay, mentors. So we wanted to just take a minute to go over some very mentor specific aspects of the program. And the first thing I wanted to talk to you about are observations. So for mentors of year one candidates, and we have some mentors that are doing both. So I know that must be really rough because you're probably feels like you're doing all kinds of observations at this point. But if you're a year one, if you have year one candidates, you are going to be working on their inquiry B. Okay. And as I said before, they have 2 observation cycles. So from your end of things, you have that pre-conference, right? So as they get to, you've gone over everything that that timeline I was talking about where you just review the whole document and go, okay, this is what we need to do. Then you want to set a time for what we call a pre-conference. And that's where you sit down and really work out the lesson plan. So you give them, they tell you what their question's going to be, what they want you to really look for and focus on during the observation. And that is really all you're going to focus on during the observation based on what they tell you. So you really need to know you're just going in there as like basically a second set of eyes for them, a way to put a mirror up so they can see what you see. And that's what the pre-conference is for. It's to kind of plan out that lesson and really get a feel for what they're wanting you to look for during the observation. Then you have the actual observation of the lesson. Right after that, it should happen within 24 to 48 hours, you want to give them your notes and you want to have a debrief conference. Okay, you want to sit down and tell them what you saw. Remember this part, it shouldn't be evaluative. It should just be what you saw. This is not you telling them that they could have done this differently or that maybe that wouldn't work. But it's okay to ask them and let them come to that point. So maybe maybe they ask you to watch student engagement. So that's what you're looking for. And you notice that, a lot of the kids aren't engaged. A way to let them know that would be to just describe in your notes the behavior you saw, right? So, 10 out of 15 kids had their head on the desk. So as opposed to saying, not everyone was paying attention, or, no, they really weren't engaged. You just want to tell them what was actually happening. Okay, that sort of thing, so that it's really objective. Then you'd repeat the process. So again, you have the pre-conference. Based on what you saw the last time, you guys have come up with some steps, some things that maybe need to change. You help them design that lesson, and the things that are going to change, observe the lesson again, and then again debrief. So it's 2 cycles for the observation. And it's important, again, I already said it, but make sure that you share your observation record with them before the debrief conference, so that they have time to really look at what you thought, and they can kind of think about that a little bit, or not even what you thought, that's not the right phrasing, what you saw. Okay, it gives them a little bit of time to sit with it. We do have that observation record on our website. It's in the mentor resources section, so you can pull that out. You're not turning in anything as mentors. You're not giving us your notes, so that's all for you and the candidate. We provide that for you, and I think it even makes it sound like you have to use that. You don't really have to use that. It's just a good thing to use, because it kind of maps it all out. But if you have another way of taking notes, please do. I think that's a really easy thing to give the candidate. But you can take other notes. You could use like a seating chart, or if you have some other way that you take notes for observations, that's perfectly fine. But do make sure that there's something you can give to the candidate that's pretty clear, for them to really see what you saw. And maybe your way of taking notes is to write down into script everything that's said, or maybe you just summarize. There's no real rules here. And that, in fact, that might be something you speak about with the candidate during that pre-conference, like how they prefer the notes. Would they rather you have like a snippet of what they did, or do they want, just your kind of summary of certain things? Another thing to keep in mind is, depending on what they want you to look for, that kind of dictates how much time you need to spend in the class, right? If they just want you to look at, let's just say, routines of entering in the classroom, well, then you don't need to stay for the whole lesson, right? Or maybe they want to see, like I mentioned before, student engagement. Again, you don't necessarily have to stay for the whole class time. Maybe it's just that amount of time you feel like you've had enough that you've witnessed to be able to write to it. So based on what they prefer you look for, really kind of dictates the amount of time you have to spend. And most of the time, you're not going to have to spend that whole period in there. Okay. Year 1 observations, this is what it looks like. This is what I was talking about for the observation record. Again, not required. You're not giving that to us, but that is a good thing to give to the candidate, if possible. And these are some options for conducting, because we know, the teaching context is a little bit different right now. And I just even had an email today saying there's no way we can get subs right now. What can we do? Maybe you can sit in on a Zoom if that's easier. Maybe if your district allows, you might be able to get a recording of the lesson. If you can't do any of those things and you're really at a loss, just reach out to your program specialist and we'll try to figure something out. But these are the 2 most common alternatives that we give. Okay. So the mentor's role in the year 2 project. So if you're a mentor with a year 2 candidate, you just want to assist them in keeping things on their radar, right? Making sure that they have the things they need, and that they're keeping in mind their target audience, what kind of communications that they need to make, and that the project really is doable and feasible. And make sure that it extends their learning from Inquiry C. So it doesn't have to be exactly whatever they did. So again, I keep using that example, but let's say they did student engagement in Inquiry C. They don't necessarily have to weave that into this project, but the skills that they learned from that or developed, they need to find a way to put that in the project. But the project itself, again, remember, that could be like a canned food drive or something like that. But then how did that make the students engaged? How did that increase that? But the real focus is, how are they extending that learning beyond to the community, or to peers how do they extend it out of their classroom. Check in routinely with the candidate regarding their progress, because again, this is a little something different. It's the first year we've had year 2 candidates do this. So just make sure that they're staying on top of it, especially with a project. It's easy to have that kind of, fall off the radar a little bit. So as a mentor, just make sure you're regularly in your meetings checking in with them to see where they are. And ensure that the project promotes growth in that CSTP 6 area, specifically in 6.2 and 6.7. So we have some resources specifically for ECO mentors, because like I said, it's a little bit different. Our ECO are those early completion candidates. So not all of you have ECO candidates. In fact, we don't have as many ECOs this year as we normally do. So probably not a lot of you even have ECO candidates, but if you do, this slide is really good for you. It has that interactive agenda from the meeting that we had for ECOs, really maps out what the expectations are for them. And so that's just another resource we're providing for you right now that's just in one place, this slide deck. Here are some resources to assist you in providing support. So if ever you're thinking like, at this place, what should I be helping my candidate with? Like, I don't even know, like there's so much going on. That's what this section of the program guide was meant to do, is just tell you, okay, you're in stage 3, see that blue column, this is what we're working on here. So these are the kinds of things you could be looking to go over with your candidate in your meetings, in your weekly meetings, or things that you want to, again, keep on their radar or your own because it's coming up. So that's the purpose of these pages that you'll find in the program guide. And again, the page numbers are up there at the top. Just a way to just visually show you where you want to be and what you want to be working on at this stage in the year. Right now we're in stage 3 in that blue column. Look how far we've come. That feels good. So Mentor ILP 2, that's due February 9th. This one is a really, it's just short and sweet. And I want to just go over, we don't have a bigger picture of it, but I just want to go over it just real briefly with you. This one, we wanted to give you the option. So I hope it's not.
I think if you click on it, Tracie, I think.
Oh, it will. Oh, well, thank you. You were right. It lets me make a copy. Yeah, it's just going to take a moment. So this one is really just your reflection on your growth so far this year as a mentor. So remember, in Mentor ILP 1, you set some growth goals too, how you want to grow as a mentor, because as mentors, you're growing all the time. Every year, you're adding to your toolkit, right? You're developing as a mentor. So we wanted just to know how you've grown. So what mentor network trainings have you attended, and how did they help you reach your growth goal? And that's really all we're asking for here. It doesn't even really look that long, but it really isn't much. But what we did do is we offered the option, if you didn't want to write it, you're allowed to instead just create a video where you're talking about it. So far, I think, Jason, have we only had like one come in that way? I think it's just been like one person.
That's what, Tracie?
Done the video example instead of
Yeah,
writing.
and it was amazing. It was so,
yeah.
It was so neat to see, but we just wanted to provide some options.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So you absolutely don't have to do the video option, but it is, some people prefer talking as opposed to writing. So that's just an option there for you. And again, the questions are pretty basic here on the left. It's just asking you what mentor networking you went to and how, what were your takeaways? How'd they help you grow as a mentor? And that is all. And then I said before, we waived ILP 3 for mentors, just as a way to, again, try to take some stuff off your plate. Same thing we did with the mentor meetings that we changed up a little bit, the mentor networking meetings. We were just trying to ease up a little bit. We know this year's been crazy, so hopefully that will help you guys a little bit, give you more time to spend with your candidates and on yourselves. That was the intention. So remember, after tonight's meetings, just like I said for the candidates, please take that survey. You'll find in the things to do box, and you'll also find it in the assessment section. If you would please look there if you're not finding it in the things to do box. So for now, I'm going to open it up to some questions and answers. So just unmute yourself or throw a question in the chat. No questions at all?
Can you please remind me, where can I find the program guide?
Oh, sure. The program guide, let's see if I can, I'm just gonna get in it. I probably got timed out, so just give me 1 second. Yep, I did. Hold on. Well, I just forgot my own password. Okay, so you go here, yours looks a little bit different than mine, but you also have a resources tab here. And then you just go to manage external links and see it's right here, digital program guide. You click on that and just open it up and it's right there. And that's where all the ILPs are kept. That's where you'll download those. And remember, with this program guide, you don't have to scroll all the way through. You can just click right on the actual part of the table of contents of where you're looking. So let's say you want to do ILP2, you just click it and then go ahead and download the document. You don't forget that step. Remember, a lot of people in the beginning, they forgot that step and they couldn't do anything with it. And then you make a copy and then that's it. That's your mentor ILP. But to answer your question, I went a little bit beyond that. It's right here in the resources section under manage external links.